The Bermondsey Horror, Mary Ann and Frederick Manning. Victorian London was a city of shadows, narrow streets choked with fog, poverty pressed tightly against wealth, and justice often arrived too late. In 1849, one crime shocked the nation so deeply that it drew the largest public execution crowd England had ever seen. At the center of it were a husband and wife, Mary Ann Manning and Frederick George Manning. This is the story of betrayal, greed, and one of the most infamous murders of the 19th century. A dangerous union. Mary Ann Thompson was born in Switzerland around 1821. She was intelligent, striking, and ambitious, qualities that allowed her to move comfortably between social classes. By the time she reached adulthood, Mary Ann had already lived a life marked by instability, failed relationships, and financial desperation. Frederick George Manning was a former customs officer with a violent temper and a criminal past. He had been dismissed from his post for theft and assault. Where Mary Ann was calculating, Frederick was volatile. Their marriage was turbulent from the beginning, fueled by jealousy, money troubles, and mutual resentment. But what bound them together was something darker, a willingness to do anything for financial gain. Their victim was Patrick O'Connor, a prosperous Irish dock laborer, former lover of Mary Ann. O'Connor trusted her completely. He had loaned her money in the past and believed she would help him manage his savings. In August 1849, Mary Ann persuaded O'Connor to visit their home in Bermondsey. She promised him comfort, reconciliation, and assistance with his finances. What O'Connor didn't know was that the Mannings had already decided his fate. On the evening of August 9th, Patrick O'Connor arrived at the Mannings' house. He never left. Evidence later revealed that Frederick shot O'Connor in the head while Mary Ann assisted. Together, they stripped the body, wrapped it in a blanket, and buried it beneath the kitchen floor, pouring quicklime over the remains in an attempt to hide the smell of decay. The Mannings then set about stealing O'Connor's money, pawning his belongings, and trying to forge access to his bank accounts. But Victorian London was not so easily fooled. Neighbors soon noticed a foul smell coming from the house. Mary Ann attempted to explain it away, blaming sewage and spoiled meat, but suspicion grew. When authorities finally searched the property, they discovered the decomposing body beneath the floorboards. The Mannings fled separately. Mary Ann was arrested in Edinburgh. Frederick was captured weeks later on the Isle of Jersey. Attempting to escape to France, they were brought back to London to stand trial for murder. The trial of Mary Ann and Frederick Manning gripped the nation. Mary Ann appeared cold, well-dressed, and unrepentant. Frederick was aggressive and defiant. Neither showed remorse. Both blamed the other. But the evidence was overwhelming. They were found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. On November 13, 1849, Mary Ann and Frederick Manning were publicly executed outside Horsemonger Lane Jail. An estimated 50,000 people gathered to watch, including the writer Charles Dickens, who later described the scene as horrifying and barbaric. Mary Ann was the first woman executed alongside her husband in Britain. Their deaths marked not just the end of two lives, but a turning point in public opinion. The spectacle contributed to growing opposition to public executions, which would later be abolished. The Mannings became known as the Bermondsey Horror. Their crime exposed the dark underbelly of Victorian society, where greed, violence, and desperation thrived beneath a veneer of respectability. Mary Ann Manning remains one of the most notorious female murderers in British history. Frederick Manning, a symbol of unchecked brutality. Their story endures as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous threats come not from strangers, but from those we trust the most. The haunted doll claim. More than a century after their execution, the names Mary Ann and Frederick Manning have resurfaced in an unexpected and disturbing way. In recent years, an item appeared for sale online. A pair of vintage Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy dolls, housed in an old suitcase allegedly discovered in Bermondsey. The seller claimed these dolls were not merely antiques, but vessels. According to the listing, the dolls were said to be inhabited by the restless spirits of Mary Ann and Frederick Manning, the Mannings themselves. The description went further, alleging that the dolls carried demonic energy, manipulation, and malevolent intent. The Raggedy Ann doll was described as containing Mary Ann's spirit alongside a succubus-like entity, while Frederick's spirit was said to inhabit the Raggedy Andy doll. Bound to the demon's will, those who handled the dolls, the seller claimed, experienced cold spots, loud unexplained noises, disturbing dreams, and a compulsive urge to keep or free the dolls from confinement. The seller stated the dolls were found in an abandoned, Bermondsey property in 2017, allegedly a site of occult activity. Though no independent evidence has ever verified these claims. History versus haunting. There is no historical record connecting the Mannings to any objects, rituals, or supernatural beliefs. Their crime, brutal as it was driven by greed, not mysticism. And yet stories like this persist. Haunted objects tied to infamous criminals occupy a unique place in modern folklore. They reflect our discomfort with unresolved violence and our desire to believe that some crimes leave a stain that time cannot erase. Whether the dolls are nothing more than macabre collectibles or symbols onto which fear has been projected, one thing is certain. The story of the Mannings refuses to stay buried. Perhaps the real horror isn't that the spirits of Mary Ann and Frederick Manning linger in cloth and thread, but that, more than 170 years later, their actions still disturb us enough to imagine that they might. History does not need ghosts to haunt us. Sometimes, the truth is more unsettling on its own. Seller description: Mary Ann and Frederick Manning and a demonic succubus. Haunted Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls. These 1970s Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy dolls are chilling vessels for the spirits of Mary Ann and Frederick Manning, the notorious Victorian couple who committed the gruesome Bermondsey horror murder in 1849. In life, the Mannings were known for their greed and ambition. They lured a former lover of Mary Ann's, a man named Patrick O'Connor, to their home. After murdering him in cold blood, they buried his body beneath the kitchen floor, believing they could steal his wealth and escape justice. Instead, their crime was uncovered, and they were both hanged, leaving their souls restless and bitter. The Raggedy Ann doll, inhabited by Mary Ann's spirit and a demonic succubus, exerts a powerful influence over men in particular. Men who come into contact with the doll often experience vivid nightmares, strange attachments, and an eerie compulsion to keep looking at it, or even to try to free it from its confines. When I found these dolls in an abandoned house in Bermondsey in 2017, it was obvious the place had been used for dark rituals. Ouija boards and signs of devil worship lay scattered, and it was clear a demonic succubus had latched onto the Raggedy Ann doll. This demon now uses Frederick Manning's spirit in the Raggedy Andy doll as her puppet, driving him to do her bidding. The Mannings, already tormented by their own greed and guilt, are now bound to the will of this sinister entity. In their haunted state, the dolls create cold spots, loud bangs. These dolls contain the Mannings' restless souls, but for a dark and malevolent force that thrives on greed and control. The haunted entities within these vessels are known to communicate in a variety of eerie ways. They respond particularly well through a Ouija board or a pendulum, making their presence known with unnerving clarity. Those who interact with the dolls may also experience vivid nightmares or strange, almost lucid dreams. In addition, the entities have been known to make candles flicker unexpectedly, and some individuals have reported the sensation of a ghostly touch or seen shadowy humanoid figures out of the corner of their eye. These varied forms of communication make it clear that these spirits are both powerful and ever-present, always seeking a way to be acknowledged. Additionally, the Raggedy Ann doll is kept in a unique and unsettling display. She resides inside an antique leather suitcase that has been carefully modified with a perspex window in the front. Soft LED lights inside the suitcase cast an eerie glow on the doll, making her presence visible at all times. The suitcase itself is worn and aged, adding to the sense that she is both contained and showcased like a relic of a dark past. This display not only draws attention to the haunted doll but also serves as a constant reminder of the sinister force that dwells within her.